So often I hear, I don't have time for a side hustle. So I want to talk about this and answering the number one objection that we hear. I want to talk to the woman who is in network or affiliate marketing and you want to build, but you keep coming back to, I just don't have time. This is not the person that's bad at managing time. It's the woman who's maxed out, who is, maybe you're homeschooling or working full time or caregiving or all three at the same time, who falls into bed every night already feeling behind on tomorrow's list. First off, I see you. I've been you. And I'm not going to insult you by saying you have the same 24 hours in the day as everyone else. What I am going to do is tell you the truth about what it actually takes and let you decide if that, not only if it fits your life, but if it's worth it to you, because that's a decision only you can make. And I've seen moms with 7 to 11 kids rock this industry and women working full-time jobs. It's really about your drive and your need. And so I'd rather give you real information than just a pep talk that makes you feel like, I know, I should do it. Right? I'm Janine Marino. I'm homeschooling 5 boys, running multiple brands. I've dealt with autoimmune issues that wiped out energy for seasons. What felt like I've been a caregiver for my grandmother before. We've traveled full time. I've had times where my to-do list almost laughed at the idea of adding one more thing. And times where I felt like God was asking me to add one more thing when I was like, what should I say no to? And so when someone tells me that they don't have time, I believe them. And I still want to have this conversation with you because I think that this time objection is often covering something deeper. So let's get into it.
Yeah. And so I'm Natalie Lawson and I am a new mom. So I don't have 5 boys. I have one and then another on the way at the time of this recording. But I think it's important and that we talk about, like she said, like, what does this look like building in the network or affiliate marketing space in real time? And in the beginning, you truly are, most people, you're thinking and talking 30 to 60 minutes a day because most people really, it is like their side hustle. It is just something they just need some grocery money or they want to be able to, go on an extra vacation or they're just trying to help maybe their husband and, take the load off of him a little bit. So you're not really gonna need a lot of time. It's just gonna be about what you are prioritizing and where could this maybe fit into your schedule, even though you're like that, like she was just saying, you have so many things. You're like, can I really do another thing? But I want to encourage you that we have seen the women do it. I've seen Janine do it. Sometimes I'm like, Janine, I don't know how you do it all. Her capacity has grown so much that she can't, really. And that's what a big portion of it is. But what you need to understand is what you're doing during that time is you're responding to messages, you're posting on social media, you're having conversations with people who are curious or who you want to share what it is that you have. And it's consistently just showing up in those small ways over time and having those, and in those conversations with people. So it's not having a second full-time job. For me, I was a teacher for 13 years and teachers always had an extra side job of some sort. And I was working like multiple odd and end jobs to help bring in that extra income. But I guess that what that meant. Sometimes that meant I would go straight from teaching to another job and not get home till 10 o'clock. That's an exhaustion that I realized like I did not want to have, which is what made me start thinking about how could maybe this being in this industry and building a business online, give me back my time. And so, if anybody tells you, oh, it doesn't take very much time at all, like, I mean, they're kind of lying to you. You need to put time into it and it needs to be consistent, but you can start out with 30 to 60 minutes. And if you have bigger goals like Janine and I, then that will expand over time to 60 to or an hour to 2 hours or maybe 4 hours a day. But again, it depends on your season. It depends on your goals. And then I want to also think about this and talk about this as well, right? When someone says, I don't have the time, this is a common objection, right? And so I feel like there usually means one of 3 things. And I like to kind of uncover a little bit more and ask people more questions to really see what is the actual issue with time. One is that you actually don't trust yourself to do the work. Because I think a lot of women struggle with that. They realize they've dropped the ball on other things, or they've started things before and then they weren't consistent. They didn't really put in the work. So they're like, they lost some of that trust in themselves, like, can't will I actually do it this time, right? And so it sometimes it's just a trust issue on yourself. It's not really a time issue. And that's totally fair, right? You just got to decide. Again, it goes back to your priorities and what you really want, and do you trust yourself to do the work and to learn as you earn. The second thing is, you're feeling like what Jenny was kind of talking about. I'm already so depleted, I can't imagine adding anything else, right? And so that is a capacity issue. And so if that's where you are, then the conversation to start a business might need to wait. Or you can think about like what needs to maybe shift in your life so that your capacity can expand, because you can't build from empty. You can't serve others, from an empty cup, as you know. And so health and margin and like what you need in your family always is going to come first. But imagine if you start focusing on those different areas of your life that maybe need to that can help you expand your capacity, expand your time, then that is what needs to happen so you don't stay where you are. So who do you need to become so that you can grow and be able to make room for the things that you want to do? And then the third thing is, a lot of people say, I really want this, but I'm scared it won't work. And so it's easier to say I don't have the time than admit that I'm scared, or admit to the fears that I have, or maybe the past failures or anything like that, right? That might come up, or being afraid to talk to people, right? So you're just like, I just don't have the time. I don't think I can do it. And so that, again, that's right, just as simple as a fear issue. And that one can literally be worked through, right? Everybody has fears. We all had fears coming into it. I definitely did. And so it's something that you can actually overcome. And a lot of time it is just requiring you to, again, it's just taking that step, and just know that because the time either way is going to pass. Right. So again, everything comes back to, what do you want? Where do you want to be? Do you want to stay where you are, or do you want things to shift? And so let's talk about kind of the math that most people don't do, that Janine will dive into.
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of a different way to look at this. So you're already spending time, every week, month, year, like the time goes. And so the question is, what are you building with it? What are you doing with that time? A year from now, you'll be a year older, regardless if you did anything or not. So the question is whether you'll have something different to show for it, whether you have grown in that year. And if you spent 60 to 120 minutes a day for 12 months consistently building, that's over 300 hours invested in something that could produce income for years. That's not nothing. That's a foundation. And most women don't fail because they don't have time. They fail because they start and stop, because the first month feels slow and they interpret slow as broken. They think it's not working because they treat it like a sprint instead of a build. A mentor once told me, instead of starting and stopping, to have like a minimum and a maximum. And so it's kind of like an ebb and flow, because life will get busy. You have to plan for it. And so you have to know that you are going to have days where it's not up to like what you wanted it to be. You didn't get all the things done. Maybe your goal was to work for, 2 hours a day, and maybe you only had time for 30 minutes or 20 minutes. Let me tell you that 20 minutes is better than nothing, because when you do nothing, then you're stopped and now you got to restart. And that's harder than just doing a little bit. Even if you were to just do a little bit all the time, that consistency can compound. And God can do things with those little things. You bring what you have and he will multiply it. And so the time is there. It's just the question of, are you willing to prioritize your business and protect a small piece of your time to be consistent for long enough to learn the skills, long enough to actually get people into your pipeline and earn people's trust, and long enough to see the results and the harvest, because you have to keep sowing in order for that to come.
Yeah. And I think that's what leads into, right, the bigger picture, because like I said, most of us, right, we don't have the time. It's because we're trading it for a job that owns our schedule a lot of times, right? Or we're doing all these other things. And so goes back to, what is the life that you want to have, not what somebody else is like trying to design for you. And that was something that I had to think about, right? Was when I was teaching and working all those jobs, I thought, I cannot keep this up. And when I have children, like, how am I going to be able to sustain that? And I'm still not even making that good of money. So how is that going to support a family? Right. So that's when I started really shifting my thought and started thinking, what could I do? And then when I had a baby and was still working full time, yeah, I came home exhausted every day. And the last thing I would want to do, right, was talk to more people, especially because I was a teacher. I was talking all day long. And, the last thing maybe I want to do was, watch a training video or something to learn. But I realized, like, did I want to stay here? Because if I didn't do anything different, was my life going to change, or was I going to have to keep teaching and always come home exhausted and barely get to see my baby? So it was like, what is your motivation? I crave being home with him more. And so it made me focus on in the pockets of my day when I was at work, like, when could I, respond to a message? When could I learn something new? And then also spend some of those times in the evening and allow myself to, like, okay, actually prioritize that and give it some of my time, to where now my husband and I are home together, right? And we're getting to raise our baby. I'm not having to work full time, and you can start living the life that you want if you're willing to make some of those different decisions. So you ask yourself, what is the cost of not doing this? Not just financially, but in terms of freedom, in terms of your options and what you want your life to look like, not just, like in the now, but also think of the next few years. And so starting now is what makes a huge difference. And so that is, when you ask that question to yourself, then it is going to change your math completely and start looking at, okay, where can I create the time?
Yeah, and so here's where we'll land. If you genuinely don't have margin right now, if your health, your family situation means you are truly tapped out, you need to honor that for a season. But if you've been using the I don't have time as a comfortable way to avoid the decision you know you probably need to make and to get outside of your comfort zone and prioritize things, then I just ask you to move in the direction of, what do you want the next year to look like? If you don't have time now, how are you going to change that? You may need to give more time now to something so you can have more time later. And that is a biblical principle. And so you deserve to build something, not someday, but now. And we are called to be good stewards of our time, of our finances, and all of those things. So step out and do it. You will not regret it, I promise. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.